The X Zone Radio Show is heard on radio broadcast affiliates worldwide, including
AM 580 CFRA in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
WPUL AM 1590 in Daytona Beach, Florida.
KOHI AM 1610 in St. Helens, Oregon.
KHRO AM 1150 in El Paso, Texas. And for more information on becoming a professional broadcast affiliate of the X Zone Radio Show, visit
www.xzbn.net
or call toll-free worldwide
1-800-610-7035.
The X Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Sparks fly from her fingertips. Echoed voices in the night. She's a restless spirit on an endless flight. Ooh, witchy woman, see how high she flies.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Kristan Barton, and she is a Wiccan High Priestess and a professional energy worker who co-leads a coven in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She has studied Wicca and witchcraft for 8 years and is an ordained minister through Covenant of the Goddess Northern Dawn chapter. Kristan is a Minneapolis Wiccan examiner for Examiner.com and has written for Pangaea and Pagans and Witches magazine. Joining us now from Minneapolis, Minnesota is Kristan Barton. And Kristan, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the Wiccan religion.
Well, Wicca is a religio-magical spiritual practice
Mm-hmm.
which teaches that the breath of the divine is immanent in all nature, including ourselves. And we connect with this divine force by celebrating the cycle of the season of the earth. And these are actual astronomical events in the year.
Mm-hmm.
In the calendar, they're not made-up holidays. We celebrate the solstices, the equinoxes, and the cross quarters.
Right.
And we also celebrate the 13 moons, which are called aspects. Our solar holidays are called Sabbaths. And the rituals that these holidays celebrate have to do with birth, growth, power, decline of power, death, and reincarnation. Wicca is based on ancient principles, but it's actually a very recent religion. It was developed in the 1950s by a gentleman named Gerald Gardner and his high priestess, Doreen Valiente. And there's a lot of controversy about our religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about what Wicca actually is as opposed to what people might think it is. Wicca is not evil, and it is not satanic. It doesn't recognize any being similar to the Christian Satan at all. Wiccans relate to the divine in the form of a masculine force and a feminine force, also called by us the Lord and the Lady, or the God and the Goddess. And we believe that the masculine and feminine are constants in nature and therefore always present in the divine.
All right, Kristan, you and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. Please stand by. X-Zone Nation, Kristan Barton is our special guest. We're talking about Wicca this hour here on the X-Zone. And Kristan and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, if you'd like to listen to the X-Zone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, www.xzonetv.com.
Fingertips, echoed voices in the night. She's a restless spirit on an endless.
X-Zone Nation, Kristan Barton is our special guest. She is a Wiccan High Priestess. And we're talking about Wicca this hour with the Wiccan religion. Now, a lot of people, Kristan, for some reason think that there's a connection between Wicca and evil forces or even satanic rituals. And I was wondering if you could kind of clear the air once and for all maybe about what Wicca is really about. Like, I've talked to many Wiccans over the years, and not once have I ever received any inclination whatsoever that there is anything evil, satanic, or demonic about Wicca.
No, there really isn't, and I'll be honest with you in that it confuses me as much as it confuses you. The holidays that we celebrate, the path that we follow, really is about celebrating the cycle of life, and particularly, there are certain holidays that we celebrate that have gotten a really bum rap, particularly Samhain, which is October 31st. The rest of the world calls it Halloween. Now, Samhain is basically a time that we celebrate our ancestors who have passed before us. It is the time when the veil between the worlds in our culture, in our opinion, is the thinnest. And so we have access then to some limited communication between those worlds. And we believe very strongly in honoring those who have come before us. And so when witches get together on Samhain night or Halloween night, it is a very serious holiday where we have ancestor altars and we bring pictures of our grandparents who have passed and our pets who have passed, and we tell stories about those people and honor them. I'm not quite sure why people think we're doing awful things like blood sacrifices and things like that, or killing black cats, because that's not at all what we do. There are basically what we celebrate are 8 different points on the wheel of the year. So those are Samhain, which I just described, Yule, which is the winter solstice, which is a time when the light is born again. Basically, it's the shortest night, and then the light returns to the land. And then there's Imbolc, which is February 2nd, which is when the sun begins to get much warmer and stronger, and so we celebrate the end of winter. And then we have Ostara, which is the vernal equinox, March 21st, and that is celebrating the planting time. Beltane, which is May 1st, another one that's gotten a bad rap because it celebrates fertility. And in the old days, apparently there was some cavorting that used to happen back in old Europe on Beltane. but that is not something that modern witches do. We celebrate by dancing the maypole and having feasting and celebrating the warmth. And then we have Litha, which is the summer solstice, which is celebrated on June 21st, and that is a very powerful time for us, the solstice being the time of balance between the dark and the light. And that is the celebration of the great marriage between the goddess and the god.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes weddings will happen during June because of that old custom. Then we have Lunasa, August 1st, which is the first of our harvest festivals when the grains were being harvested, and we have a big celebration celebrating the bounty of that harvest. And then we have the autumnal equinox, which is Mabon, September 21st, which is like our Thanksgiving. So that's basically our wheel of the year, and you'll notice that there's nothing evil or satanic about anything that I just said.
No, there isn't. But tell me, as a member of the Wiccan coven, and in fact, isn't it true that a lot of the holidays that are celebrated by Christians around the world were actually pagan holidays that the Christians actually scoffed from the pagans?
Well, I'm very careful about accusing people of cultural appropriation, because certainly what we do also is oftentimes appropriated. I celebrate the feast day of Aphrodite, and that is obviously not from my home culture either. But yes, it is true that a lot of the holidays that were celebrated by the pre-Christian pagans were kind of acquired by the Christian church in order to encourage people to convert. And this is just my opinion. I know I'm not a Christian.
And history will support that. It was basically a marketing ploy to get the pagans over into Christianity. After all, the more Christians you have, the richer the Christian churches grew.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Absolutely. There has been that argument made, and it is a compelling argument. I don't think modern witches have too much of a problem with it, at least my group doesn't. But I think that it is common to demonize the gods of the culture that a person is vanquishing. So when the Christians came in, it's quite possible that it was easier to convert people if you demonized the gods that were, previously worshipped in that area, certainly.
It reminds me of kids playing in a playground. My dad's stronger than your dad. Yeah.
Possibly. For instance, Pan, a well-known lord of the forest in the Indo-European areas, there was a horned god, and he resembles the Christian Satan in many ways, with the hoofs and the horns and so forth. So that's possibly a demonization of Pan. I don't know.
Well, then we can look into Greek mythology and the centaur as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell me, what was it that brought you to join and to become a Wiccan?
Well, in the Wiccan community, we actually don't refer to conversion, we refer to homecoming. Most of us have known that we weren't being fed by the religion of our families of origin. Wicca being a recent religion, of course, a lot of us are coming to it as adults. Now, there are those of us who have children and we raise them in the pagan community, and those children are born in the pagan community. But for me, when I was a child, I always knew that I had sensitivities. I knew that I could dream something and it would come true. I knew that I could touch something and get a reading off of it and tell you about the person who had owned it. And this is quite common with people who come to the Wiccan community. We seek a group of people who will not be freaked out by that, and we also often feel very close to the earth, and we want to be good stewards of the earth, and we feel the tides of the earth.
Do you feel in these times, in the year 2010, that Wiccans are still being persecuted?
There are certain groups. As the Wicca Minneapolis Examiner, I have had an opportunity to read some articles by other examiners that are not of my faith, that tend to want to draw us into discussions of that kind of center around conflict. And we are not in conflict with any other religion. We did not become who we are because we are rebelling against any other faith. It is simply that we needed to create something that would serve us. And so persecuted, I don't know if I'd say persecuted per se, but there are folks who seem invested in believing that we are at odds with them for whatever reason.
What do Wiccans do during one of their meetings? For example, what would be the Wiccan equivalence of going to church on Sunday?
Well, we celebrate in circles. We will usually go to someone's home or preferably an outdoor setting if we can get one.
Mm-hmm.
And we will create sacred space in the form of casting a circle, which is done with a wand. And we believe that that we kind of can take our churches with us. Wherever we are, we create holy space and we honor whatever deities we are working with that evening. And we will often do things like meditations, power raisings. A power raising is basically our equivalent of singing a hymn or a prayer, where we create this great emotion within ourselves and our bodies, and then we release it as a way of feeding the gods or sending our energy out for a particular purpose.
Can anyone become a Wiccan?
Well, certainly. There has been a little bit of controversy within the Wiccan community in recent times because there were some folks who said, well, if you were not initiated by a Wiccan initiate, you couldn't be a Wiccan. But there are many people who practice as solitaries who either don't have access to a coven or a teacher, and they will simply begin to practice on their own by reading books, doing whatever feels natural to them. So certainly anyone who wants to honor the Wiccan holidays could call him or herself a Wiccan.
As a high priestess, what authority do you have within the Wiccan religion?
Well, we are very non-authoritarian with our communities, in that when a person is a high priest or high priestess, it is basically a title that we have gotten by moving through the studies that are available. There are different levels of initiation, and they have more to do with our willingness to provide service to our community and our skill set than it has to do with any desire to be an authority figure. And so I do have some authority, particularly when I'm running the circle, when I'm the one who is actually the priestess of the circle. What I say goes, but it is very different from, say, a Christian hierarchy within a church where you have the different officials.
How do you define mortality as a Wiccan?
Well, mortality is shedding the body. We don't actually believe in mortality in the sense of dying and not coming back. Many Wiccans, and again, there's no dogma, so different Wiccans will differ in opinion, but most will believe in some form of reincarnation, whether that is a person going through one lifetime after another in a linear fashion, or returning to the whole, which would be something like an oversoul, like a drop of water returning to the ocean, and then coming out as another drop that has been taken from the whole.
How did your friends and family react when you decided to tell them that you were going to become a Wiccan?
Well, I am blessed with a wonderful family, and I was always encouraged as a young person to study world religions, and so I was not put in the position of having to really sweat that out very much. There was some concern. A lot of times, because of Hollywood, with the demonization of our symbols, such as the pentacle and the hooded robe and things like that, people kind of...
Kristan, I hate to do this, hon, but we've got to take a commercial break with the news. We'll be right back. X-Zone Nation. Kristan Barton is our special guest. She's a Wiccan High Priestess. More about Wicca on the other side of the news. Don't go away. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network. X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio,
Euro High Definition Radio,
and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035.
Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com.
And our website,
www.xzoneradiotv.com.
Love was glass that broke apart. Then it faded into what do you do when you get lonely? Nobody's waiting by your side.
Exonation, Kristan Barton is our special guest. She is a Wiccan High Priestess. And, Kristan, we were talking about your family and friends and what they thought when you went into Wicca, and you told us that you come from a wonderful, supportive family, and then you mentioned the Hollywood aspect. Why do you think Hollywood has always had it in for witches? For example, in The Wizard of Oz, they had it in for witches. Hansel and Gretel, the witches, and it seems that nursery rhymes as well as fairy tales have always had it in for the witches. And as a Wiccan, how do you feel about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't necessarily associate the old images of witches with what I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that culturally speaking, the witches that were present in the ancient fairy tales were really more people who were doing black magic, people who were to be feared because people were still recovering from things like the Inquisition, where for political reasons, anyone who didn't practice and believe in a certain way was systematically destroyed. And of course we had Malleus Maleficarum, the witch's hammer, which was basically a treatise on how to torture people into falsely confessing that they were in fact witches. So to me, that isn't necessarily a slam on my people today. But I think that, demonizing certain people's selves, witches in popular imagination are obviously supernatural beings, and so it's very easy to create fear in people's hearts and then to appropriate the use of the pentacle or the pentagram and the hooded robes, which are donned for a very benign reason. It just sells. It sells movies.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the most common aspects that we know about witches, and please set us straight on them, all right?
Sure.
We talked about the hat, the peaked hat. What's the real story behind that?
Well, generally speaking, we don't wear them now, with the exception of needing a little comic relief. But it's my understanding that the initial use of the pointed hat was that Druids wore them as part of their Druidic decoration that would identify them to the people as they moved around from town to town.
And the wand, was the wand basically a tool for channeling energy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. The wand is just basically a stick that's been consecrated for the channeling of energy.
All right. Now, how about the kettle? That you throw the children in and cook the children in.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we refer to that as a cauldron, and the cauldron is representative of the womb. And there are many myth cycles that Wiccans will sometimes work with, such as the Celtic Caradwyn. Her cauldron is known as the recombining place for souls when they have died and crossed over, and then they emerge anew into a new incarnation. But we just use them to mix up lovely brews.
What about spells? Do Wiccans cast spells?
Certainly. Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. One can be a Wiccan and never cast one spell, because really, being a Wiccan means that you celebrate the religion of Wicca. Now, many witches, as part of their celebration and their acknowledgement of nature and the powers of nature, acknowledge that there are forces of nature that cannot be felt with the five senses. And so we will work with the unseen, and we believe that in sending forth the will into the ether with proper preparation and proper focus and proper knowledge will result in changing something in the known world. And so yes, we do cast spells, but we never cast spells to harm anyone because that's against our rules.
What is the strangest thing that has ever happened to you as a Wiccan High Priestess?
Oh gosh, I really wish that I could give you something really dramatic, but it isn't really that I have strange experiences. I have beautiful experiences.
All right, can you share some of the beautiful experiences with us then?
Sure. When someone is in sacred space, one can astrally project and experience going somewhere else while your body is still in the sacred space. I've seen very dramatic healings happen. I have seen, what else have I seen? Well, there's something called drawing down the moon or the sun, which is basically when a trained priest or priestess, and I want to emphasize that one must be trained to be able to do this, takes the god or the goddess energy into their body, and then the god or the goddess speaks to the people who are assembled. And so oftentimes when the drawing down is very successful, the person who's drawing, their countenance will change, their energy changes, their voice changes, and they know and say things that the person who is doing the drawing down could not know. And it's very validating for us to know that we have, in fact, spoken with our deities.
Is it safe for someone who has not been properly trained to pick up a book and start trying to practice Wicca?
It depends on what you mean by Wicca. Now, again, this is my personal opinion. Obviously, not all witches feel this way, but I believe that books that explain how to celebrate the holidays are wonderful and benign and can really lead to some very powerful spiritual work for the solitary person who doesn't have access to a teacher. However, working with the occult aspect of Wicca is, in my opinion, potentially quite dangerous if one doesn't know what one is doing. For instance, I cannot tell you how many times I've been called in to do a house clearing for someone who has decided that they're going to whip out the Ouija board on Halloween night for some fun. And they have opened up a portal in their home, and they can't close it. And they end up getting some real interesting paranormal stuff happening in their home. And two, when someone is experimenting with magic that is kind of beyond their education, one can exacerbate things like mental health problems, one can experience negative attachments, and in very rare cases, possessions. Although I have never personally encountered a possession, I have certainly heard of them.
What's the difference between a white witch and what is the opposite of a white witch? A black witch?
I guess, but I that's something that is discussed a lot in the Wiccan community. I don't like the term white witch and black witch or black and white magic, because truly magic is magic. Okay, magic is like a kitchen knife. You can use the kitchen knife to make a beautiful meal for your family.
Definitely.
Or you can kill somebody with it. Or if you don't know how to use the knife, you can accidentally cut yourself very severely. And so I wouldn't go so far as to be arrogant enough to call myself a white witch, because there are times when maybe I've done something that isn't, necessarily going to have a perfectly pure effect. We are all human. But certainly there are people who try to go out and use magic for their own personal gain, and that is always a very negative experience for everyone involved, and usually the person ends up becoming quite ill and has some really negative things happen in their life. So we just don't curse people in general, unless we're kind of dumb.
What role does a candle play in the Wiccan ceremonies? I know that different colors are used for different reasons.
Certainly, that is called It's a form of sympathetic magic. Candles can be used for just about anything. We use candles when we're calling our gods in circle, to light a candle to each of the gods we're working with. We can use candles in spellcraft, where we can attempt to diminish a particular force in our life by lighting a candle, and as the candle burns down, the force is diminished. Candles can be used for just about anything, and there are color coordinations that some people use, correspondences. They're not always necessary. If you don't have a pink candle and the spell calls for a pink candle, you can use a white one, and if your intention is proper and your focus is what it needs to be, then it will work.
Television shows like Bewitched, were they good for Wiccans?
I think you're going to get as many answers as there are Wiccans on that one.
All right, your personal opinion.
I don't think it's good or bad, truly. It's obviously fictional. What happened on Bewitched, there's absolutely no resemblance to what I do on a daily basis in my practice.
You mean you just don't wiggle your nose and all your housework is done?
No, and I'm still waiting for that spell. And also
Gosh.
Harry Potter, I really, really wish that stuff worked.
Now there was a lot of controversy when Harry Potter first came out, that there was a heavy association with witchcraft, and I remember interviewing a lady way back when who actually was trying to get the school board that she was part of, and I believe it was somewhere within the Bible Belt, to ban Harry Potter from the entire school board as well as the public libraries. And to me, she was going off the deep end. How did you, as a Wiccan, and how do other members of the Wiccan community feel that what seems to be perfectly all right as a father? I had no problems letting my children or grandchildren watch Harry Potter. I still don't. But once again, I have never seen anything negative about Wicca.
Yeah, I think that people who are afraid that their children might not practice the religion that they taught them might be upset when anything that could even remotely be associated with a maligned religion in their eyes is made child-friendly. I can understand that. I completely believe that all parents have the right to direct their children's religious education. I have a teenager, and I completely stand by that. However, I think that it's apparent to most intelligent people that Harry Potter is a fantastical, fictional story that has created a fictional world. And so, is somebody who's going to watch Harry Potter necessarily going to grow up and be a Wiccan? I haven't seen it yet, and it's been out for a long time.
It's just like these people who say that the strong connection between Wicca and the supernatural. Well, hold on. Name me one religious theology or philosophy today that is not based on the supernatural.
Exactly. I would definitely argue that.
That's the kettle calling the cauldron black.
I would have to agree. I think that really it boils down to the idea that religions are at odds with one another, and our belief is that there's no one way to get to God. Do you want to take a bicycle, or do you want to take a train, or do you want to drive your car? We're all going to the same place. That's the Wiccan attitude. I realize that others don't have that same perspective, but we are not trying to convert anyone. We've never tried to convert anyone. We don't believe in proselytizing at all, and as a matter of fact, it's relatively difficult to get into a coven. And particularly, we do not espouse the practice of Wicca by underage minors without their parents' consent at all.
How many members are there in your coven?
Oh gosh, I haven't counted recently. Some covens, some traditions do go by the traditional 13. We do not. We usually get up around 19 or 20. It really is governed more by how many people you can fit in the living room of the covenstead.
Ah. So the bigger the house, the bigger the coven.
Sometimes.
Aha. I see where this is going. I also understand you're an energy worker.
I am.
How does energy play into Wicca?
Well, energy is a big part of Wicca. the type of energy work that I do as a healer is not related to Wicca. I'm a Reiki master, and people of all religions do Reiki, which is a non-denominational form of healing. However, generally speaking, energy is a very big part of Wicca, because when people come together to create a sacred circle to celebrate either an Esbat or a Sabbat, we are all lending our energy to that celebration and trusting one another with our energy. And it's a very personal, intimate experience that we have with one another and with blending our energies together.
You know, years ago, people did not talk about energy transformation, balancing energy. They didn't talk about Reiki. They didn't talk about a lot of things that we talk about today. Ironically, if they would have, I believe the world would be in a better place today.
Well, I certainly believe so as well. That's how I ended up becoming an energy healer, is that I was working as a social worker, and I was helping women in street-level prostitution change their lives. Wicca has a tendency to be quite feminist. We love our men as well, of course. We're not anti-male in any way, but Wicca acknowledges the equality between men and women. And so I was doing this work, and I was very, very, I was just raw from hearing all of the horror stories, and so I sought out some energy work.
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to carry this conversation on the other side of this break that I have to take, Kristan. Please stand by. Kristan Barton is our special guest. Here's a website explanation for Kristan's energy work. GaiaTransformations.com. That's GaiaTransformations.com. And Kristan and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Nation, Kristan Barton is our special guest. Here's a website for Kristan's energy work, GaiaTransformations.com. That's www.GaiaTransformations.com. And first of all, Kristan, thanks very much for joining with us and putting us straight on what Wicca is all about. I admire the work that Wiccans do. I know that a lot of Wiccans are involved in work that is being done around the world to turn the world around, taking care of Mother Nature, in which so many people neglect. And in fact, a lot of the people on Greenpeace are Wiccans. So thank you very much for all your work.
You're welcome.
Now, we were talking about your social work and how you would use energy healing with the people that you were working with.
Actually, I was seeking it to help myself, because I was so very, very affected by all of the horror that I saw. And then I began practicing because I loved it so very much. And I've just never looked back. It's wonderful to help people heal. And I've seen some very miraculous things happen.
What would you like to leave our audience with tonight?
I would like to just let folks know that I think it's high time that we actually take a look at who our neighbors are, as opposed to who some people want to paint them to be. Wiccan people are, as you've said, very concerned with our environment, being good stewards of the earth. We believe strongly in high morals and ethics. We are not people who are doing dark and dangerous things, but we are people who are very invested in our communities. And we are also very many. There are thousands and thousands of Wiccans in the United States. As a matter of fact, in Minneapolis alone, they call it Paganistan because there are many thousands of us. And so we are not necessarily a minority and we are good folks. We are organized, and we want to be part of your community.
If somebody's looking for a Wiccan teacher, are there any red flags they should watch out for, as to tell them that this person is a stay away from?
Oh, most certainly. Most people should just, when they're seeking a Wiccan teacher, go straight to an organization that gives credentials to pagan ministers. First of all, Covenant of the Goddess, CUPS, which is the Universalist Unitarian Pagan Folk. I would be very wary of anyone who seems to pop up out of the woodwork and call themselves a high priest or priestess of so-and-so. Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the more flamboyant a person is and the more desperate they seem to attract followers, the more wary I would be. Also, anyone who ever tells you that sex or sexual acts are part of the Wicca culture or part of Wiccan rituals is lying to you. It is not true. We do not do any sort of blood rites or anything like that. And we also do not look fondly upon people who are interested in becoming gurus and having followers to butter up their own egos. We're very service-oriented.
Kristan, I want to thank you so much for joining us, dear. Take care of yourself, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Exonation, Kristan Barton has been my guest this hour. GaiaTransformations.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break with the news at 6.5 minutes past. Don't go away.